And we are live. And hello to Renée
Hello.
M. LaTulippe.
Yeah. C'est moi.
And c'est toi. C'est moi. And for once, I'm delighted to introduce somebody from the Mediterranean. We can almost lean across and touch each other. I mean, most of the people I interview, I would have to travel 10 or 12 hours or 14. I can just, come to, I don't know, Tuscany and just rent a car and I'll be there in 2 hours.
There I am.
So
Come on over.
incredible to meet you. You have your name goes before you, beside you, behind you. We're going to talk about your name. And I'm so honored to have you on the show. We're going to talk about your life, your career, your thoughts, your unique combinations. Especially, we're going to talk about the Crab Ballet, your recent book with Cameron Books, part of Abrams. How incredible that you happen to have it on hand.
Isn't that a coincidence? Huh?
Serendipitous, if there ever was.
Yeah, synchronicity. Mm-hmm.
Absolutely. And we're going to talk about your life and your name and your career. And I have to remind everybody, because sometimes I forget, that my name is Mel Rosenberg, and I am the host of the Children's Literature Channel of the New Books Network. And that is why we're here. Renée, welcome to the interview.
Thank you so
much.
All
about you.
I am really so pleased for the invitation and to meet you for the first time live. Your name also precedes you. So I have definitely seen you around. I've seen your interviews. And so, yeah, I'm so pleased to be here. Thank you so much.
Yeah, it's funny, like you say, to be here, but you're actually there. I'm so happy to be there. Yeah,
I'm happy to be here on this computer world.
Okay, absolutely. So enough of the niceties.
Yes.
First of all, tell us where your name comes from. Renée M. LaTulippe. Qu'est-ce que c'est? Qu'est-ce que c'est?
Yes, it's quite French, isn't it? It's Renée Marie LaTulippe. It's super duper French. I think both sides of my grandparents, maternal and, or at least one of the maternal and both paternal grandparents came down from Canada, I believe. I've tried to piece this together, on, those ancestry.com and everything. And I can't get that far back, unfortunately, but it would seem that they've come down from Quebec. So somebody somewhere was definitely French. I have LaTulippe on my father's side, and his mom was La Rochelle. And on my mom's side, her mom was Jean-Thérèse Godet, quite French. So yeah, there's this whole Frenchy thing, which I feel very akin to. I feel, I always felt very much that I was born on the wrong continent, But my first name, Renée, was just, my oldest sister was named because my mom always wanted a little girl named Debbie, and my older brother Don is named after my father's brother, and my younger brother is named after my mother's brother, and my name was chosen off a list. So I'm named after no one. I was almost Jennifer, but here I am, and I always said, thanks, mom and dad, because I like my Frenchy name. So yeah, that's where that comes from.
Canadian. So you're almost a Canadian.
I'm almost a Canadian. Yeah.
I would sing for you Au Canada in French, but je me ne souviens pas. Je ne me souviens pas. Oh, Canada, les fleurons glorieux.
You are a man of many talents.
Yeah, I was singing the Canadian anthem in French is not one of them, dear. Show everybody your incredible book. Now, I fell in love with this book. I'm going to have to come to Italia and get a signed copy. This is a gorgeous book. It combines what I love teaching people, which is thinking between the boxes. You have at least 3 boxes here. You have the box of the sea, which you love. You have the box of poetry, which you love. You have the box of children's books, which you love. And you have the box of ballet, which you love. You're a theater girl. We're never going to get into one interview. Start at the beginning. I was born. Where were you? Start start with the book. Show us some of your gorgeous book. It's gorgeous. It's gorgeous.
Thank you. Okay, so what are we starting with? The book?
Let's start with the book. It's your
Let's
show.
start
The
with the
book.
book. All right, this book, all right, The Crab Ballet, started as a poem that I wrote for a March Madness poetry contest run by Ed DeCardia quite a few years ago, like in 2015 or something like that. And I had to write a poem using the word iridescence. Like he assigned a word and we had 36 hours to write a poem. It was a contest. And so I got 6 stanzas that came out, which are fairly much intact in the book, in the final book. But then, of course, over the years, I expanded it before starting to submit it through my agent. And yeah, and it just sort of went. So there was already ballet in the original poem. Yeah, I just pictured these crabs. Many years ago, I was an exchange student in Brazil. I lived in Brazil for a year. And I remember being on the beach. And the first time I grew up in the country, so I mean, I'm not a beach person. So there I am on the beach in Brazil, and I see all these little holes. The waves go back, and all these little tiny holes, and these little crabs pop out, and they go skittering sideways, back and forth, right? And I was kind of freaked out. Yeah, exactly. They look like giant spiders to me, so I was kind of freaked out. I didn't really see the poetry in it at the moment, but that image always stuck with me. And I have to thank those Brazilian crabs who were skittering around all around my chair.
And let's say thank you. Muito obrigado, Brazilian crabs.
Muito
Muito
obrigado.
obrigado.
Yes, I don't remember how to say crabs, but in Portuguese, but thank you to the Brazilian crabs. So I think that image was the impetus. It has always stuck with me. And so this became about the crabs. And, because they're up on point, right? They're on point. So there they are. All they need are little ballet shoes and they're all set. So yeah, and it just expanded to include more sea life and more ballet terms, I added more ballet terms as I went along. As you mentioned, I am a theater girl. I'm not a dancer at all. I'm just an admirer of all of the arts. And my little girl does ballet, and I'm just tickled pink that she does. Something that I would have done.
Pink.
Yes, tickled pink. And yeah, so that's where the book came about. That was it.
Well, now feed our great curiosity and show us the spread and read one of your beautiful poems.
All right, let's
talk about this marvelous illustrator.
Oh,
who's also from Europe.
Yes, she's French. She's French.
She's really French. She's
actually French. Yeah, she's super French. Cecile Metzger. Check her out on Instagram too, because I just love her stuff. It's just, I mean, look at this cover. Look at it. She does watercolors. I started watercolors about 3 years ago, and I just fell in love with it. And so when I found out that they were going to do watercolors for the illustrations, which of course to me would be the only choice, obviously. And I was just absolutely thrilled when I got the first look-see at this whole thing. And yeah, I mean, the detail that
show us pictures.
The detail that she has in every page is just amazing to me. All these little plans and the color scheme and her crabs. Okay, I have to show you the crabs. My favorite page, right? It's just a whole bunch of crabs in ballet positions.
I love it.
I just absolutely adore this. I go through and I'm like, okay, first position, here's a tendu, here's a plie. It's so cute. And the little eyes, that stick up there. I just adore them. And I'm not going to show you the middle of the book because people who haven't read it, there's a little surprise in the middle. Here, I'll read this one. This is the beginning of Act 2. All right. We've got this whole page of our
okay. So we're not allowed to tell everybody what's in the middle of the book?
Oh, well, did you want to?
For sure. I thought it was genius.
Okay, well then we'll do it. I'll read that.
No, because you talked about Act Two, and
Right. All right. Well, I'll back up a little bit. All right. So the stars of the show are the crabs, right? And here they are all getting ready to, go on stage. And then we go on stage. I'm coming into the middle of this. So this is like near the end of Act One. Pas de bourrée leaps in midair, landing soft as mermaid's hair. Dramatic fish dives finish low, then pointed feet sweep round à terre. Now claws aloft in fifth position, side chasse in repetition. Pirouettes, first fast, then slow, cymbals crash. Intermission. Yeah.
genius, genius.
Yeah. And I just love that, they just allowed it to be just that. Because I was concerned, as a writer, you're never quite sure what the publisher is going to end up doing. But I was just like, I was just so happy that they stopped with this. And I did have a little suggestion that she have one creature there. And the creature is actually, this little crab is like, it looks like he's pulling up the sea as a curtain, kind of looking out at the audience. I just think that's charming. So yes, so they left my intermission as is, made me very happy. Oh, and the first one, it was just a tiny little word here. And I was like, no, let's intermission. So yeah.
So you're a bit of a hands-on art director here.
Yes, I can be annoying. No, they asked. Okay. They asked. I said, okay, you're asking me how many notes can I actually give? And I gave a lot of them. Yeah, I have a little bit of that as well in my, sort of graphics and stuff like that in my background through my work and whatever. So yeah, I have sort of cultivated a bit of an eye for that as well. But the illustrator, Cecile, was so wonderful. When she sent the what do you call that? The first I've lost the vocabulary. The first sketches or whatever it was. She sent them with her thought process for each one so that we could understand
Wow.
like what she was thinking. And it was just wonderful. I mean, she was just fabulous. So it was wonderful to be able to answer to that. And yeah, it was just a real great collaboration. Yeah, I got very lucky.
So
Very
Cecile, if you're watching, écris à moi, s'il vous plaît,
we'll have to
or
send this
I
to her.
or I
We
will
will
find
send
you.
it to her.
Uh,
Or I will find you. That sounds
Renee, it's one of these books that are gorgeous in many ways. And there's a couple of things we want to talk about. You are a believer, well, because it's okay to write poetry and it's okay to write rhyme if you get it right. Most people don't. And you're running against the tide here. But if I'm not mistaken, you are an evangelist for loving poetry enough to have it affect the lyricism or the lyricalism or whatever of your prose when you write prose. And I want to get back to that. But first, let's talk about your life.
all right.
I thought you were born on the sea.
I was not. I'm from a little tiny town in upstate New York called Salem. One traffic light, 2,000 people, 8,000 cows. That's it. That's all there was. Had to drive 45 minutes to go see a movie. I mean, we're talking dairy country, full on country, rural. I mean, I lived in town, so I was a townie with the one traffic light. But yeah, so that's where I grew up. I grew up in the same house my dad grew up in. My parents met
Wow.
there. They got married there. Yeah, a lot of family history in that area. So I do have some nostalgia. Of course, there comes a time when you kind of have to move on. There's not a lot of opportunity there, and it never felt really like my place, some place that I could stay forever and ever. But I'm grateful to have grown up in the country because
Did you have cows in your life?
no,
Did
I
you
had
have
no
a
cows in my life.
farm?
I did not. We lived in town. So
Because I have this image. um, of, and it's not going to leave my head for the rest of this conversation. I apologize.
Good.
Of your next book being cows doing ballet.
No, I have no plans. I have no plans for that.
Well, then we should sell that idea.
Yeah, I'm
Um,
sorry
we,
to
we
disappoint.
we should
Um,
story storm it because I think that a book about cows.
cows.
Pa-
I think I think
and
I think I might find some other occupation for the cows, some other art.
Okay. Pas de mots, pas de mots. Okay. So you grew up in cow country, but you weren't a
Yes.
cowgirl. You weren't a cowgirl. When did you become a poetry and a showgirl?
Showgirl, like I was in Vegas. Um, I actually wrote my first poem when I was 7. I remember it very well. I was sitting in my dad's big, black vinyl recliner, My parents were having had some friends over for cards, and I wrote my first poem called Whale in the Sea. And I was so proud of myself. I was just like, oh, oh. So I got up and I showed it to them, and they're like, oh, great job, and la la. And that was the beginning. I just kept writing, and I had notebooks and notebooks and notebooks and notebooks full all through from 7 years old all through high school. And then I took a year off to be an exchange student, but then I went to college, and I stopped writing poetry for 20 years. The life was sucked out of it for me. Yeah, I wrote a lot of free verse in high school. Free verse is my first love. I love free verse.
Hmm.
And I think that's probably where my my love of lyrical language comes from. It's not from rhyme, it's from it's from free verse and using poetic techniques in free verse. And I got to college and I realized, oh my goodness, I'm really bad at this. I'm like just really, really bad at this. If you read anything from high school, which I hope no one ever does, it's all this angsty stuff, lots of dead roses, all that kind of thing. It's I'll read like Sylvia Plath's Juvenilia, and it's like that's Juvenilia. How do you say it? Juvenilia. I'm like, that's what you wrote when you were 18. I'm like, okay, well, I'm just gonna go crawl in my hole now because that's embarrassing, right? I mean, it's just like it was amazing stuff. Yeah, that wasn't me. So, and I had a professor who just sort of just he encouraged me, but at the same time, there was just something about all that analysis and all of his weirdness, like his particular weirdness, that I just got turned off from poetry, and I just stopped writing for 20 years. And it wasn't until I discovered the kid lit world. No, that's not
Hold
true.
on.
That's not true.
We're getting ahead of ourselves.
Yes.
What college? What did you major in?
Oh, oh gosh. Okay. So, that's a twisted tale. I went to a college I didn't want to go to. I went to SUNY Plattsburgh for 3 years, and I did not like it. Because when I was in high school, I applied to only one college because I wanted to study French, actually. Yeah, I wanted to be an interpreter. And so I applied to one college and I got in, and then I took a year off to go to Brazil. And while I was there, things happened, and I ended up not being able to go to Nazareth, College of Rochester, which is where I was going to go. I was all set. I was going to live in the French house, with all the French students, and I was so excited, and that didn't work out. So I ended up going to this place, and I was an English major, and then I didn't like that, and so I became a theater major, and I loved that. But after 3 years, I quit. I had a wonderful mentor while I was there, a wonderful English gentleman named Mr. Salmon. He was a visiting professor, and we would go to lunch and we would chat, and he's like, he said, darling, darling, I have no idea what you're doing here. Why don't you leave this two-bit town and go do something else? He was against my love of musical theater. He's like, you need to go write the next American, great American novel. I'm like, really? All right, okay, well. But anyways, I did take his advice, and I quit college and I moved to New York. So that's how that happened. And I finished my college career at Marymount Manhattan College, which I adored, uh, with a BFA in acting and directing. So I just kind of
Wow.
switched. Yeah. So I had kind of a long college career, good 5 years with some.
Well, because I'm a lover of classic musicals. So why just give me one or two or three of your favorite classic musicals?
Well, I also love some classic musicals. Guys and Dolls is right up there. I absolutely love Guys and Dolls, always have. Some of the classics I
I
don't like.
got I got a horse right here. His name is Paul
It's Paul
Revere.
Revere and the weather's if the weather's
If the
clear.
weather's clear, can do, can
Can
do.
do.
This
If
guy says the
as
horse
the
can
horse
do.
can do. You haven't seen. I always wanted to be Adelaide, you know.
Oh, Adelaide, Adelaide.
Adelaide's Lament is got to be like the best.
It says here. It says
It says
here.
here, and also, you know, because I grew up near Saratoga, so they changed the line to be Saratoga instead of whatever it was in the original, you know. And they get off at Saratoga for the 14th time. That one, you know, when she's complaining about me.
A poison can
A
develop
poison can
like
develop a
grip.
cold, la grippe, la grippe. Yes. So
The
that's
post
about
nasal.
the post nasal
We
drip.
can. Next time we're on, we're going to do Guys and
We're
Dolls.
just gonna
You and I were.
do we're just gonna do show tunes. You'll have to invite Elizabeth Law though. So.
She's been on the show about 3 times. I got no
Well, there you
trouble with
go.
that.
We got to do some more. Although her knowledge of the theater goes way beyond mine.
Yeah.
So yeah, the classical. So that would be my favorite, probably my favorite classic musical theater. Yeah,
I was gonna say, I wish I could have Frank Lesser on the show.
Yeah. Wow.
What a guy! Able to write this, the words and the music, incredible. Well, we'll have another. We'll have another
Well,
separate.
that's another story. That's another story.
Yeah, I know. Not all our favorite ones, just Guys and Dolls,
Just Guys and Dolls. Yeah.
and then we can talk about the other ones,
Yeah.
like West Side Story and so on.
Yeah. Of course.
Show tunes, and then what happened? You ended up in Europe.
What happened? Oh yes. So I did my BFA in theater.
How did you fall in love with Kidlet?
Yeah, okay. Well, that happened while I was in Italy. I did my BFA in theater. I had a little theater company in New York for a few years with a, blah, blah, blah. I mean, tiny, like little tiny, like 8 million little tiny theater companies that are like that, don't
That's
survive.
incredible. That's
Well, not
incredible.
really. I mean, we just
Well,
did a few, shows and I directed and whatever. I love directing. That was my thing.
I'm sure you did, but what was the
Yeah.
name of the company? What was the name of the company?
Oh, it was called the Sun Ensemble. I started it with a friend of mine from college, and we did a few shows. He was an actor, I
That's
was a director.
incredible. That's incredible.
I mean, Mel,
Yeah.
little tiny theater companies in New York are a dime a dozen, and that's pretty much how much money we made too. So, But anyways, after a few years, I realized this theater thing, I don't have enough passion to really follow it. I love it. It's in my blood, but it's just, and so I went back to NYU and got my MA in English education and became an English teacher. I did that for a couple of years in New York. And then in the summer of 2001, I said, you know what? I'm going to go to Italy with some friends because I want to see the Palio in Siena, the horse race in Siena. And so we did. And while I was there, I thought, I can't come to Italy and not put my toes in the Mediterranean. So I went to the bus station. I spoke just a little. I always like to study the language a little bit before I go to a country, but I didn't know a lot, but I knew enough, to get around. So I go to the bus station. I said, just send me to the sea. I had no idea where to go. So I just said to the ticket guy, send me to the sea. And he was like, okay. And he gave me a ticket. And I got on the bus and I ended up at the sea. And it was this gorgeous medieval town, gorgeous, gorgeous, with a castle up on the hill and this sea and it was wonderful. But I didn't know how things worked in Italy. Here they have all the stabilimenti, with the umbrellas on the beach, and you have to like pay to get the umbrella. So I kept going from one to the next, and then the lifeguards were like, no, this one's for the hotel. If you're not a guest, keep going down, you'll find one. So I kept going down. The last one with the umbrellas was open for everybody. I staked my claim on an umbrella, went to the bar to get a cappuccino, an iced cappuccino, which of course in Italy they don't know what the hell that is. And the barman is now my husband. So long story short, yeah, that was the end of that. So I went back to New York, and it was September 11, right? It was that 2001. And I was teaching, and September 11 happened, and he called me from Italy, and I was walking home across the Triborough Bridge, and he just decided, what, I'm going to come there. So he came, and I quit my teaching job. We did a coast to coast road trip, and then I moved to Italy, and that was it. So yeah, between meeting him in July and moving here in January, yeah, 6 month kind of whirlwind thing. And I've been here ever since. So that's how that happened.
Not in the same town, or you moved towns?
In Italy. Yeah, pretty much this area, I mean, we moved here and there to, but always in the same area.
And once a year, you go to the beach to the same bar where you met.
It doesn't exist anymore. They tore it down.
I
know. Bummer.
We went back.
Yeah, we went back to visit, and there's nothing there. It's like, oh, all right, well.
So you stayed in Italia.
Yeah, and so I had to find something to do for work, right? So there was this thing called Elance, which was an online job, kind of like Upwork, one of those things. And I just discovered it, and I started doing editing. I was like, why didn't I ever do editing? I'm like, I've always done, proofreading other people's papers at college and that kind of thing. And it's something that I enjoy. And I met a woman on there and did some work for her, and have been with them for 16 years. She's like my main client. And it was through her, All About Learning Press, that I began to write for kids, because they do All About Reading and All About Spelling, which are programs for the homeschool market to teach kids how to read and spell. And she's like, why don't you do a collection of poems for our preschool program? I was like, all right. And so I wrote 40 poems. I was like, oh yeah, I used to write poetry. I totally forgot. And that's the first time I began writing poetry again. It was because of her. That was in 2010-ish, 2010. And then I didn't even know that Kidlit existed at that time. I was like, people write for kids? Like, that's a thing that you can do as a living? And I started my blog, my poetry blog, No Water River, and boom, I met Bennett Hopkins, and I met J. Patrick Lewis through my blog, and I interviewed people much like you. And I just got to know all these wonderful poets, and this new career was born. Yeah, it's kind of weird, actually, how it all kind of worked out,
It's a wonderful story.
The roads that we take and the ones that we don't.
Right, exactly. So let's talk a bit about lyrical writing.
Okay.
I don't want to get too much into poetry. We can get into a little bit. Let me ask you about your poetry. Is this your innate ability in terms of rhyme and meter? Is it something you learn? I'm of the opinion that you can't really learn meter and rhyme if you don't have a natural gift for it. It's like being a musician. Am I right?
That's a hard question. I mean, for me, it's innate.
Renee,
I've got
answer the question. Are you thinking about it?
Oh, did we freeze?
You're not moving on me.
Uh-oh. You stopped too. Can you hear me?
Well, hi everybody.
Oh, you're back. You're back.
Now
I
can hear you.
Oh, okay.
No, now you're back. We were both gone for a second.
Yeah, you were gone too. You were like, not really.
And you were like,
I was thinking, wait a minute, you're not frozen again, are you?
Okay, now you're.
Oh, okay. Hello? Oh no.
No, we're out now. I'm not. Are you frozen? I can see you.
Okay, no, I'm good. All right. It's going a little bit in and out. So if it happens again, I'll just keep talking until I come back.
Okay.
Hopefully it's not my fault. on this
Okay,
side.
no, I don't think it's your fault. I'm going to move this table a bit because maybe it'll give me a little bit of better internet. Okay,
What was
I'm
the
with you.
question? Oh, we were talking about whether it's an
Rhyme and meter a
yeah,
gift or something that
or a
you
skill.
study,
Is it a
a
gift or
skill?
a skill?
Yeah, but
Uh,
I want the answer in 2 sentences.
yeah, I think it's a little bit of both, honestly. With me, it's an 8. I just naturally have meter. I never learned it. I just know it. Um, and it's just rhythm. It's just like an innate rhythm that some people have, and they can hear it and they see it. And then there are other people who really just can't even hear stressed beats and words. I do think it can be learned, which is I teach it, right? I do think it can be learned to a certain extent. I have had students who really cannot pick it up, and that's okay because it's not a necessary skill to write for children, but I want to write in rhymes. And I always ask why, why? Because it's not necessary. Free verse is a gorgeous thing. I prefer it to rhyme. Like that, my first book as a rhyming book is funny to me because it's the only one I've ever written. I write in free verse. I write free verse picture books and verse novel, and yeah. So I do think it can be learned to an extent if you already have some rhythm in you. Um, and then if it really isn't something that you can learn, then don't worry about it, because there's so many poetic techniques that you can use that have nothing to do with rhyme that are going to make your writing poetic regardless. So yeah, I do think it's a little bit of each.
But but you think that we writers should have some feel for the poetic line in order to
Yes.
help us with our lyrical writing.
Absolutely. Not just lyrical writing, any writing, because, if you're reading a book, there's a rhythm in the book. And it's a prose book. You could be reading Stephen King. There's a rhythm in there though. There's a reason that this sentence has this many words in it because he felt it, the writer feels that. If I add that extra word, it's already too long. Like I can hear it. If I'm writing something, I'm like, yeah, that just seems to be like kind of clunky or it's going on too long. If it's clunky, it's probably my word choice. I can do something to make it more interesting, make it, rhythm is just important in all writing. And we learn rhythm, through studying poetry and music and all that other good stuff, not just poetry, music, dance, whatever, any art, honestly, I think can help you
But
with
I,
that.
I believe that language is music,
Yeah.
and so in that sense, you're right. The other thing that touched me in your story is the theater. I think it was Ellen Johnston who wrote a few years ago that a picture book is theater, um, and that is like one of the wonderful things in that intermission spread, like you showed, where you have the curtain. You know, this is a theater for me to you. You're the audience.
Yeah.
Somebody is reading. It's like a reading. So if you want to comment on that, I'd be happy.
Uh, whether it's like a theater, you mean a
Yeah, to
picture
what
book?
extent? To what extent a picture book is theater? It certainly is in your ballet.
Well, it is in my ballet because I mean they're putting on a performance, so it's literally a theatrical
No,
performance.
but no, but would you say that the same way you teach people to have this lyrical sense
Hmm.
that derives from poetry when they're writing a picture book, well, maybe they should also have a theatrical sense.
Well, I think we do need a theatrical sense. I'm always telling my students to add some drama. And it's as simple as using punctuation to add drama in a poem, like the famous dash, Emily Dickinson, didn't use it for nothing. It's drama. So I'm always saying, you need to add some drama here. So yes, I mean, I approach things, becoming from a theater standpoint, I do approach things in like just kind of naturally in acts. Like here's my opening act or my opening scene, let's say more in scenes, I guess it would be for a picture book. Here's my opening scene. All right, I've introduced these people. Here's my next scene, but where is my build? Where is that conflict? Where's that build? And then you have, in this case, it's an intermission, but normally you would have the climax, which would not be an intermission is kind of the anticlimax, isn't it? It's like, oh, well, now I'm not going to do anything. So that was kind of a switch in my book. Whereas, you would want to have the climax. The climax in this one is nothing. It's nothing. There's nothing there. And then of course you have the denouement, right? Yeah. One of my favorite words, denouement. Where it's got to come down and you have your closing scene, your resolution. So yes, I mean, a story structure is the same as a play structure practically, so that is like a theater production. Yes. I mean, my theater collection.
But I'm going to see you and raise you because
you mean raise?
Because picture books are theater in the sense that somebody is reading the story to you.
Oh, okay. Maybe I didn't get this question quite. This is true.
I didn't phrase it properly. So when I saw what you did in that book, I'm saying, oh, we all have to be more theatrical in our writing. Maybe not to the extent of Act 1 and intermission and Act 2,
right.
But to keep this in mind, that this is a play in the sense that a parent or grandparent or teacher or librarian is actually
it's got to be read aloud. Okay. You're talking about because it has to be read aloud.
Well, it's like, you're putting on the book.
You are putting on a book. Absolutely. I love reading books aloud. I read everything. I just love reading aloud. But yes, there's nothing worse than a flat reading. So, if your writing, is theatrical and poetic, theatrical, dramatic, let's say dramatic, that's going to make it a lot easier for the reader to really get into it. But, I think that the onus here is also on the reader. Not everybody has a theater background and can do all the voices and, the reader has the job of bringing that book to life. I mean, the writer can only do so much, it's words on a page, but the reader becomes
Renee, I love
a collaborator.
When I get very lucky, then I have an interview with somebody like you, and we talk about something that I've never talked about, never really thought about. And so I'd like you to think of a picture book that you love, because what I'm thinking is, if you are a parent, right, who has a theatrical bent, right, then you're going to put on the play when you read it for the child.
Yeah.
But what if you're not? Then you need the author to go that extra kilometer and to make it easy for you to be the actor.
Well, I would posit that if a book is published, the writer probably already did her job, right? The drama's in there, the elements are in there. If the book is published, well, I'm just going to assume that that's a good book. Okay, sometimes it's not. We all know that. We'll just, the elephant in the room. Okay, it happens. It's okay. Let's just forget about that small percentage. All right. I go to the books on my shelf.
It's a good thing you're not interviewing me today. That's all I can say.
Okay, that's another conversation. So I go to the books on my shelf. I pull off any old book. I open it up. I know it's been published. I bought it. So, I obviously had an interest in it. It's well written. That's why it's published. So I think that the writer's already done her job, Mel. I mean, it's already done. Yes, if you do need to add those things in there for the eventual reader. A picture book is a collaboration between, the writer and the editor and the publisher and the eventual reader, because there's nothing worse than, if someone's going to read my book, turtle spiral in between, a seahorse pair glides on the scene. I mean, that's depressing. The reader needs to step it up. I don't know how else to answer this question.
No, because I never asked it before, and I never really thought about it enough.
No.
And that's why I love these interviews.
Yeah, I feel like I'm babbling a little bit.
No, but babble away, because maybe what poetry does. Okay, I've interviewed about 150 authors editors, agents, illustrators. Okay, there isn't such a thing as a book that can't be improved.
Okay, yes, I can agree
You know,
with you.
even books that are perfect can still be more than perfect.
Yeah.
And I'm not the person to critique or talk about that, except that, you know, like at night when nobody's looking, I say, oh, you know, this page turn could work better.
Yeah, yeah, yeah. I mean, we all do that. I do that.
Yeah, but what are the, you know, there's so many things that an author has to be aware of when they're writing.
I
So
mean, there's stuff in the Crab Ballet where I'm like, yeah, I think that could have been better.
no, I think it's wonderful, but
It's always gonna be that way.
there's so many things, you know,
Yeah, yeah,
throwing the ball up for the illustrator, and having what you talk about, the lyrical line,
yeah,
um, and Ellen is right. We don't, and even if we have a theater, you know, the theater in our minds, maybe sometimes we can make it more so.
yeah,
You know, like if you asked me now, to think of a theatrical picture,
yeah,
okay, where the author makes it easy for the parent. So there's the book with no words,
yeah,
right, where the parent has to make a fool of himself.
yeah.
And there's Robert Munch's books, Robert Munch, like Mortimer, you know, thump 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 thump. You can't get that wrong.
Yeah, yeah. Well,
Um,
my favorite read aloud is the classic, The Gruffalo. It's
oh,
just
you give me boost gumps.
your boost
You
gumps.
you just gave me boost gumps.
I mean, I use it in my class. It's a classic, you know, I use a lot of, you know, things that more recently published things, but that is a staple that I will always use because for me, it's perfection. It's a little bit of perfection. I don't
So
know how I would
yeah.
improve that. I don't know how
So
I would.
my students who aspire to be to use meter and rhyme but don't have the skill or don't
Yeah.
have the innate ability say to me, "Oh, but Julia Donaldson, she wrote the Gruffalo," and I don't know if you're going to believe this, but I mean it's like your trip to Italy. I actually had coffee with Julia. I just actually ran into her in a coffee house in Athens.
Huh.
And I didn't, this was
What
my
are the
like,
odds? What are the odds?
well, 0 to 1 million.
Okay.
And it was like, hi, I'm Mel. Hi, I'm Julia. Nice to meet you. Costas over here told me that you write picture books. I don't know if I've ever told this story in public. And and I say, well, what kind of books do you write, Julia? And she says, well, I guess I'm best known for a story called The Gruffalo. And I'm like, oh no, God, you're Julia Donaldson. And she says, yeah. I say, no, you're not Julia Donaldson. This cannot be happening.
That's
But
amazing.
it was. And one of the remarkable things about Julia, other than she's wonderful, nice, and you know, I spent a wonderful hour with her. So thank you, God, if you're up there. Is that she wrote songs for the BBC. Her first book was a song turned into a picture book. So
Mhm.
I came out of it. Oh, okay. So I tell my students, if you're not a songwriter, if you're not a poet, don't get into this. I
Yeah.
mean, who is Julia Donaldson? There's only one like her.
Yeah.
Sorry, you got me off on this tangent.
No, that was very interesting. I mean, just kind of an amazing little moment that you had there in Athens of all, you know, just
So
fantastic.
I the Gruffalo
Yeah.
is terrific. Um,
Well, I mean, that is
so
like one of the most theatrical books ever. I mean, at me as a parent, I mean, I have a voice for every character. There's the rhythm of it, and I love doing those voices, and you know, it's just oh, it's in my bones now. I mean, I have 3 kids and I've read that thing 8 million times. And also the Italian translation of it, I got against my will because I'm like, oh, the translator was just incredible. It's like a mirror image, but in another language. I do not know how she did it. It just blows my mind. Blows my mind. So yeah. So that one to me is a great example of perfect book, and theatrical. You've got all those scenes
Well,
built one on top of the other.
but Renee, this is my mind-blowing take from this conversation. Maybe everybody else knows it, and they'll say, "Oh, this is you're trifling with something that everybody knows." But when you write something, the Crab Ballet, okay,
Yeah.
when you write it in your wonderful meter and your rhyme and your winking with the French, and you are essentially, when you are doing your job, and you're doing your job marvelously in this book, Renee, is you're making it easy for the parent to be a thespian,
Mm,
a theater person. And that maybe that's what Julia doing so marvelously in the Gruffalo, is
yeah.
that she turns every mama and papa in the world
Yeah.
into a theatrical figure.
Yeah.
I never thought of that.
Well, neither have I. So this is the
Okay.
first time I've thought of this too. So that's what, hence
Keep
the
going.
babbling, hence the babbling. We're working it out.
I,
We're working it out,
I,
Mel.
I need you in my life. I'm going to come visit you in Italia.
Go ahead.
So what other, you've published all of these, I don't, shall I call them trade educational books for children?
Yeah.
Using language and working within all kinds of frameworks to produce lovely books. You have this gorgeous book out. You have a book of poems, like at middle grade level, I think, coming out with Charlesbridge next year.
Yeah. Which is also
Uh,
theater themed.
yeah, Limelight. No, I
And
mean,
that is another show. It's another show. It goes from audition process to the final curtain. Yeah, it's a whole show. Yeah.
I'm gonna have to do some revising now of my stories after this conversation. Wow. So what other advice do you have? A sentence on your program for lyrical literature,
Lyrical Language Lab.
lovely language alliteration lab.
Yes, the Lyrical Language Lab. Yeah.
Okay.
It's just my online course. 2024 is my 10-year anniversary. So shout out to Lyrical Language Lab. It's still going strong. So that's nice. It's just, it's a language level course, which is what I love.
Okay.
It's not about teaching people how to write a picture book. Because I'm not that person. I'm not the person to teach anybody how to write a picture book because I find them
I,
very, very difficult. I think
I'm
they're
not I'm not sure anybody can teach you how to write a picture.
Yeah, I mean, it's like really, I mean, I'm talking plot, I'm a poet, so I'm plot challenged, which is why I love poem picture books. I just love them. That's my favorite thing in the whole world.
Okay, and then you have peek and seek.
Peek and critique.
Okay.
Peek and sneak. Although peek and sneak, that might be another skill altogether. I don't know. Peek and critique. Yeah, that's my YouTube channel, which is free. Lessons and revision for everybody. I give lessons on the meters. I still have to do dactyl meter. I hope in 2024 I can get back to doing it. And that's where I take people submit stuff and I just look at it on the spot online and I just I critique it right there on video. Done. I mean, these people are super brave. I have to say thank you to all the people who have ever sent me stuff and says, yeah, go ahead and put it online for the entire world to see. Super brave and, just wonderful that they do this and they put themselves out there. And yeah, and so people can go and learn a lot on there for free. And I really want to keep that going because, people I think really crave, they people who want to write and rhyme can be, feel very lost. I think, like, I don't understand. And it's like, it is understandable and it can be learned. So yeah. So that would be my first stop for people, YouTube.
Wonderful. So I think it's wonderful that you've reached this very high level of international acclaim. You have poetry and all kinds of books. No, I mean you are an industry name now.
Okay.
Let's now we have to start closing.
Yes.
then we're going to throw everybody away and have our little
That's
after
it.
party,
I love after.
tete-a-tete. And what other pieces of advice do you have for aspiring picture writers, picture book writers?
Book writers. Um, that is a hard question, Mel, because like I said, I have a hard time writing picture books myself. Um, I think my my best advice isn't so much about writing as it is about revising. Um, and who you're surrounding yourself with when you revise. You know, this is the major piece of advice I ever give anybody on anything, whether they're writing picture books or poetry or whatever else, is, you know, you get it down on paper. Okay, we all know that. Just bleh, right? Get it down there. And then the real work is in revision, as we all know. But it's not just that. It's like I cannot work in a void. Like I need, you know, critique groups and things like that. Um, and my major advice is always to surround yourself with people who are better than you. Um, and that, you know, might sound a little weird, like, well, what do you mean better than me? It's like, no, you know, you're not going to learn. You need to make sure you have people around you who can give you feedback, who are at your level or higher, better. Um, because they're going to challenge you, you know, they're going to make you, they're going to make you better. They're going to make you strive to get where they are. Um, and you know, I have a wonderful critique group and they've published a lot more than I have. And I look and I'm like, well, what did you do? You know, and, you know, and that helps me get up there, you know, but at the same time, extend a hand, you know, to other people who are not where you are yet. Because in doing so, in teaching, you learn better your own craft, you know? And so you kind of have to have a hand in both fields here, right? But for me, it's surround yourself with people who are just going to challenge you to be and to write your best, because it's very easy, at least for me, I'm a little bit of a lazy writer, to be like, yeah, that's good enough. Yeah, but it's not good enough. Nothing, it should never be good enough. If you're saying it's good enough, it's not good enough. It just isn't. So you got to get somebody who's going to challenge you to be better. And that honestly is like, I would not have any other advice, honestly, like, oh, well, you should, you know, do your plot like this. I have no idea. No idea. I just know that in the revision process, get somebody who's going to challenge you to go as far as you possibly can.
This is great advice. What I'm inferring, and I never thought of this, is that we are like a human chain, this writer group.
Yeah.
And what you say, it's like you know, we're climbing a mountain together and it's slippery. And we know that less than 1,000 manuscripts ever gets published, and it's depressing, and we get rejected hundreds of times. And what you're saying is so beautiful that we're like a human chain,
Yeah. Yeah.
and it's important to help move people along.
Absolutely. Absolutely. And
Uh,
it's beneficial on both sides though, you know. I
yeah, look,
love teaching because I learn more.
yeah. Well, when I didn't know that I didn't know so much until I started teaching. That was
Yeah.
my big revelation. I started
Yeah.
teaching and said, "Oh, I don't know. Can I say the word shit on my own show?"
It's your show.
Yeah, I was at SCBWI in New York, and I came back and I said to my wife, "I didn't know shit. I didn't know shit." And the moment you realize you don't know shit is when the shit happens,
Right.
and then you can learn.
Yeah.
And this has been a remarkably um, teaching, illuminating interview for me, and I hope for so many people who are going to watch it, and you're going to share it. And we're going to leave everybody and come back. And I'm going to thank you, Renée M. LaTulippe, for this marvelous interview. And congratulations on this marvelous book that really is
Thank
completely
you so much.
between many boxes. The Crab Ballet, published last year by Cameron Books. Abrams, wonderfully illustrated by Cecile Metzger, and we'll reach out to her.
Oh, later in the year, I might be doing a webinar on how I revised this. So
We'll be all ears.
keep your eyes peeled.
We'll keep our eyes and ears peeled.
Because again, revision is everything.
It's never ending. Well, we'll save that for next time. Revisions will be our next subject.
Yes, we have lots of things to talk about. Mel, this was great. I had so much fun. Thank you. Thank you for letting me babble.
It's all about babbling. When I have an interviewee like you, I can't hear you now.
Oh, can you hear me now? Can you hear me now? Oh, okay.
Yeah.
All right.
When interviewees babble, I have the best time, and I think that the interviews turn out the best.
Yeah, well, let's hope so.
and you're a born babbler.
Thank you. Oh, that's high praise.
We still have guys and dolls. Okay, so everybody, bye to the world. I'm Mel Rosenberg, the host of the Children's Literature Channel of the New Books Network, Lucky Little Me, and I've been speaking with the wonderful Renée M, LaTulippe. Renée, until we meet again, which is
au revoir.
Au revoir, but we'll be back in a minute without the riffraff.
Oh,
bye everybody.